Time for a very necessary Goldie on Ice podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Goldstein. We are back here on the podcast as the Florida Panthers, the aggressive Florida Panthers, go and do it again. Another big trade, lots of movement by the Cats with the roster, all in an effort to once again put themselves in the best possible position to win the Stanley Cup. They played for the Cup the last 2 years, and Bill Zito, under ownership, and then the entire hockey staff that works tirelessly. They've got information that I think all of us would be overwhelmed by on every single player in the NHL and beyond. And they came to the conclusion that they would be willing to move a first-round draft pick either next year or the year after, and goaltender Spencer Knight for Seth Jones, who, you know, I just think fits, again, the operation of the way the Panthers have run things with player movement over the last few years. They have plucked players, high talent, for whatever reason. And you can blame the player, you could blame the coaching, you could blame the team's success, whatever the reason. Health sometimes an issue. Players that are not performing as well as the Florida Panthers think they can with them, with their current team. And Seth Jones fills that mode. You know, I've read and seen a lot, he's minus whatever it is, 108 over the last few years. Well, Sam Reinhart was minus 80 the 4 years before the Panthers got him in Buffalo. And Sam Reinhart is one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL. So, yes, if you just go and look at the numbers, Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, Brandon Montour, Gustav Forsling, Jesper Boquist, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and by the way, on OEL, including his defensive metrics, if you just looked at all of that, you would say, no, why would you go get that guy? And look how they all have performed. And by the way, there's others. Ryan Lomberg was an AHL player when the Panthers picked him up. Kevin Stenlund had never played more than 56 games in a season. He was a part-time utility player, and he hit double digits in goals and helped you win a Stanley Cup. So when you analyze a trade, okay, and by the way, the Matthew Tkachuk trade, the majority of the hockey world said, you gave up way too much. The Panthers, when they analyze players, they don't just take what we would do and say, what are his numbers with his team? No, I don't want that guy. They forget about that, and they look at what could he be here with this coaching, with these teammates, with this style of play. And I think that's why they found major success in these trades, and they fleeced teams because, yes, when you look at the numbers and the role Sam Bennett was playing in Calgary 4 years ago, he was only worth a prospect and a second-round pick. That was the production. And that's the genius in what they do. Now, Seth Jones, 30 years old. Is he older? Yes. Than Montour and Forsling and Verhaeghe and Reinhart and Bennett, and the list goes on and on of those guys that they brought in. He is older than them. But Bill Zito knows the guy well. He was with him in Columbus. Everybody did a ton of homework on the guy for the last 12 years when he was coming up. And I think with the amount of money the Florida Panthers as an organization spend on their sports science, they've got a pretty good gauge, okay? And of course, you have your outliers. I mean, you know, a guy could get hurt riding his bike. We know that. But all things being equal, they have a very good gauge on what he is going to be physically, all things being equal, over the next 5 years. And that's how long is left on the contract. So I think it's a great trade. When you get the best player in the deal, when you're trying to win, I think it's a great trade. This guy's going to eat up a ton of minutes on a, let's just call it, bad Chicago team. There's no reason to trash the Chicago Blackhawks, okay? But Seth Jones now going to run a power play with Hall of Fame caliber players. That wasn't the case in Chicago. And he's got the second most power play goals by a defenseman in the league, and he's in the top 20 amongst defensemen in power play points. So just take that right there off the bat. He takes Brandon Montour's spot. Tons of minutes, big guy, knows his way around the NHL. And another guy, again, I don't think we can discount this, that has a no trade, okay, that wants to be a Florida Panther. And you go back to the first deal Bill Zito made, getting Patrick Hornquist to waive that no trade from Pittsburgh, which initially he did not do. Okay, hang on. Wait a second. I'm leaving Sid and the Penguins, and recently we just won a couple of cups to go to Florida. Hang on. You got to get guys that want to be here. And remember, all those guys the Panthers acquired, those under-the-radar players, they were able to re-sign all of them. Even Montour, who's now gone. This was a second contract for Brandon Montour. They signed him to the first deal. Verhaeghe had to re-sign. And Reinhart, by the way, Reinhart had to sign twice. Because right after the trade, the initial deal was a 3-year deal at about $6.5 a year. Then they had to go give him the 8 years. So, there's something to the fact of getting guys that want to be there and are not just in free agency looking for the biggest price tag, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Players are entitled to their money. But these are guys that, Seth Jones, he could have stayed there. He could have dictated whatever he wanted to dictate. But the guy wants to be a Panther. And we're seeing that over and over again at trade deadlines. Tarasenko last year. And I think the Panthers are dealing with from a position of strength. Now, look, do you love giving up first-round picks? No, but you're talking about a draft pick, all things being equal, that is going to be in the 20s, maybe even the low 30s, in 16 months or in 28 months. To me, it's a no-brainer to take a couple of shots at another Stanley Cup in that time. I don't even think it's debatable, to be honest with you. So I think Jones fits in very well. You've got Ekblad with Forsling. You've got Mikkola now with Jones, pretty much sliding right into where Montour was a year ago. Kulikov, who's had a great year for what he's been asked to do, now gets asked to do a little bit less. And then whoever ends up being the other defenseman. In a rotation, do they go get a guy? Is it Schmidt? Is it Balinskis? However that shakes out. I also think, keeping this in mind, that Forsling and Ekblad play so many tough, hard minutes. It's twofold. Number one, you're going to take a little bit more off their plate minutes-wise now with Seth Jones on the team, which is huge. And number two, Seth Jones has been out there for the last number of years without a partner as good as Mikkola. I mean, we know that. Playing mid-high 20s. He doesn't have to play mid-high 20s in minutes. So everybody just slots in well. I know the other question is, what about the goaltending? All right, well, Chris Krieger's the goalie for now. Do they go get a guy by next Friday? I'm not sure. Realistically, it's Sergei's net. And if something happens to Sergei, in the worst case scenario, there's a school of thought that you're probably in trouble anyway. This team plays very well in front of its goaltenders. So whoever is the goaltender for the rest of the regular season is probably going to play 8 games. And you're talking about a team that's double digits up in the playoff race. You're talking about a franchise that went Drieger to Lyon to Stolars to Knight, and for this moment anyway, back to Drieger. Maybe another guy comes in. This team has been able to find goalies in an incredible way. And again, goalies that maybe weren't doing with their team what the Panthers feel they could do in this system with this coaching, and they've all come here and they've elevated their game. So I just got a lot of confidence in what that hockey operations staff is able to do. And now with Matthew Tkachuk on long-term injured reserve, which means he will miss the regular season, back for the playoffs. You saw Tampa do it with Kucherov and they won the cup, and you saw Vegas do it with Mark Stone and they won the cup. And, I didn't cry about it then. The rule is the rule. And I would say if you're good enough as a team to make the Stanley Cup playoffs with a guy making $9 or $10 million not playing for you, congratulations. Most teams can't do that. Take a guy like that off their team and make the playoffs. So it's going to be a very interesting week coming up for the Panthers to see what else, if anything, they end up doing. And I just think going out and big game hunting, as the Panthers have done here for a number of years, all in trying to win Stanley Cups and getting players, as they continue to do, without touching their core, is just so key to me. I mean, to go get a guy and give up, for example, an Anton Lundell, you may need a position more, but you're kind of, it's kind of a lateral movement because you're giving up an impact player. Spencer Knight, hey, best of luck to the guy. I mean, terrific person. I've gotten to know him over the years. Can respect and appreciate what he's overcome and what he's trying to overcome. And I hope he has a 10, 15-year terrific career. But you're winning a Stanley Cup this year with Sergei Bobrovsky. Make no mistake. So backup goaltender is important, but with 20 games to go, and you're already in a playoff spot fairly comfortably, to give up the backup goaltender and a first-round pick in 16 or 28 months to go get a solid 20-minute night guy who is going to be reborn back in a situation where he can win and surrounded by great players. We've just seen this script time and time again with the Florida Panthers over the last handful of years, and with a great success rate, it has worked. And I don't see any reason why it's not going to work now. Bill Zito knows the guy inside now. It was with him in Columbus. Remember, Seth Jones was an all-star playing in front of Sergei Bobrovsky. So a guy, predictable in the system. And you just look at him in his game, the way he skates, 6'4" with the long reach. We've just seen guys come into this system, and it seems like it's tailor-made. And that power play, keep in mind, Jones, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart, your entire power play with some of the best players in hockey are all signed for at least the next 5 years. Looking forward to watching Seth Jones as a Panther. We'll see you next time on the Goldie on Ice podcast.